Okay, so I've got my stair here set up that I want going up to the next level, but so. Oh, okay. So maybe you have to have a look on another screen. It's not picking it up on the network. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, so I want this stair to be maybe a different shape. So I'll delete that one and I'll do a brand new stair and can go a bit more into the stair tool generally as well. So I might still set up some reference planes for the basic shape, and so you want it diagonal, don't you? So it's something like...
Yeah, it has a 120 line in the middle.
Yeah. So I probably should make them symmetrical at least. So I'll just do... Well, I'll just mirror the first one. And yeah. So maybe just drag that across, and this one too. And then I'll get another reference plane, maybe just for the landing, and make that 1200. So actually, if you've got the drawing there, just so I can see if there's anything else you think about.
But I have it drawn in the platforms on the bottom. That way, so.
Oh, okay, so I'll just do this part anyway, and that'll do it. So, yeah, that's fine. Excellent, yeah, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to make another reference plane, and I'll show you a good way. If you need to offset a reference plane, you'll see that the offset tool actually won't work when you go to pick a reference plane. But there is a way. You go to use the reference plane tool, and then go to pick lines, and then you put an offset value in there. So there we are. And okay, so now maybe I'll bring these over a little bit so that we've got more of a gap. Oh, no, actually, so you want less of a gap, don't you? Because you want these to have...
No, that's okay. This is exactly what mine looks like.
Yeah. It is, right. Okay, so even though yours, I think, had this intersection up here.
No, I just done this.
Oh,
Yeah.
right, okay. Yeah, good. Okay. Okay, so I'll keep it like that. And then, yeah, so I'm going to do a couple of versions. So I'll start just with the stair tool. And I'm going to, in properties, check the width. So actually up here, actual run width is 1,000, so that's fine. And then the levels, you always want to check that. And then the desired number, 24, that's fine. So I'm just going to use a bit of a trick here. I'm going to trace over the reference plane to get the angle, and then do the number of steps I want. So I suppose I'll keep it even and do 12 on each side. I just can't see my text. It should give us a readout telling us how many I've done. Yeah, where is that? Oh, down the bottom, there it is, yep. Okay, so yeah, now it's got 12 created, 12 remaining. So then I can select that and move the whole thing across. So I'll just move that again. So sometimes it's easier to do it that way, to just draw it anywhere and then move it into position afterwards. And then I can fine-tune it and get this position right. Now I know this is not right because yours has the lines going parallel with this. So I'll show you that afterwards. So I just want to show you a couple of other things quickly first. So I'm going to do another flight now. And so this time I'll maybe be a bit more sensible and change the location line. Instead of having it on run centre, we can go left or right. So I'll go to run left, and then I can go from this intersection and then just bring it up, tracing along that reference plane. But, so even though these are mirror images, it's had a go at making the landing. It's doing the best it can, but it can't work out how the landing should be made. So in that situation, yep. Okay, so you can change that landing by converting it. So this is probably a good way of getting started with sketch mode with stairs. So when you select that landing, you've got that option again to convert. And then you can go to Edit Sketch and change the shape into anything you like. Exactly, exactly. That's it. So then I can just draw a new boundary line. The green lines are the boundary line, so I'm going to boundary. I'm going to draw a new boundary line across. And then maybe I could rationalise all of this. Okay, so that might work. And so I'll finish that, and then you'll see it'll adjust the supports and everything else to follow accordingly. Oh yeah, that's well, that's actually the support. Yeah. Oh no, it looks like a railing, but yeah. So when I finish it again, you'll see it'll put the railing on top of this. So the railing is still inside that.
So what happens if you have a stair that's not attached to a typical?
That's okay. Yeah, yeah. So you might need to have posts to support the stringer or the outside supports, but otherwise, yeah, perfectly fine. Yeah. So the other thing there with that landing, I'm going to go back to Edit Sketch and just show you as well the path. So that blue line is the path line. So again, I'm going to delete. Oh no, I won't delete this one. I'll just drag it down so that it's straight, and then join this. So you can edit those as well. Generally, you want them to connect from the previous flight to the next flight.
And that's just so it looks better in plan.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is nice. Yeah. Yeah, oh, that's right. You wouldn't see that stair path at all in model. Yeah. So I'll finish that one, and then I might just quickly show you if I select it and then go to the selection box view, how it looks in 3D. Oops. And so I've got another stair above, which I might just delete for now. And then, so you can see that the handrail obviously is created automatically. And so I thought before I show you how to make the other type of stair fully by sketch, I'll just show you how to get a glass balustrade, because that's something kind of everyone asks about, just plain glass. For that we'll get another type of glass balustrade, and I think I've shown you this briefly before, but it's definitely something I want to go over again. How to get railings and other things from the library. So do you remember it all? Open, that's the key, yeah, remember to use open.
It's setting the numbers like to the height of the stairs. Like, so for example, I imported 800 mil glass tanks.
Yeah.
And so I then have to calculate, and I don't know how to begin,
Yeah.
how not to have a big empty space or half.
Oh, that's quite hard, yeah. And so, and that's what will also happen if you go to load them in normally. So here I'll just go to insert, and then I can go load family, and there is a balusters folder. Sorry, railings. I mean, yep. So there we are. So railings, and that actually has balusters in it. Right. And so there you've got those glass panels. But if you load that, you still won't be able to use that as a railing. So to get railings, yeah, so it's good if you remember that thing I showed you before. Go to open, file open. And the big mistake people make there is going to open and then choosing one of the sub-options, which defeats the purpose. You want to choose open, and that way you'll see down here it's going to open all supported file types. That's really the key to it. So now I'm going to use the shortcut over here just to go to the regular metric library, sample files, and then we've got railings. So I'll open that. So I've got all these basic railing types that come with the program. And so, yeah. Yeah. I did this before the holidays, I think. So, they can be any size. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to select this, and then to get it into my project file, up here, I'm going to click copy to clipboard. It'll be anywhere you've installed Revit, you'll have this. Even without going to the P drive, it's in the default library. Yeah. Okay, so I've chosen copy to clipboard. So now how do I switch back to the file I was working before? You can minimise and then maximise, but it's good to get used to the navigation control. So up here, this button shows all the active windows. Right, now I've got a lot of windows open from my other project. So here, this is all the one file, Myrtle Street 2018 proposed V1. So these are all views from that one file. And that's giving me a big long list of views. I don't want to see all of that. So I'm going to click on the button next to it. That closes hidden windows. So now, if I go back to that same list, I've just got one entry for each file that's open. So yeah, much easier to look at. And so I'll go back to the view I had, and I'll go to the Modify tab and choose Paste. If you get a message about duplicate types, just click OK. And then I'm going to click to place my railing somewhere. Now it just came up with a message telling me that it wasn't visible in this view. That's okay, I knew that would happen. So here, my view is called 3D. So I'm going to rename it and call it Stair New Box, something like that. And then I'll go and make a new 3D view, clicking on the house. And then I can see my railing. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to delete that and then go back to my previous view. And now, because I've pasted it into the file, even though I've deleted the actual model, that's right. Yep. So in the list here, if I go and select these railings, in my list of properties, you need to know the name. You can usually work it out if you're not sure. It's this one, commercial glass with fixing. Yep. Oh, don't worry, that's just a warning. So it's telling you that it doesn't line up perfectly. And that happens. There's not much you can do other than changing the panel size. So here it's slightly off, and that happens all the time. Yeah, yeah. Still better than the other one. Oh yeah, 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 absolutely. So yeah, and I want to show. So here I'm going to select this, go to Edit Type, and there are two main settings for your railing. So you've got the rail structure, which is the horizontal elements. And so there you can see the material is metal steel. So I can just change that in here. So that works. But balusters are a bit harder. So if you go to baluster placement, edit, you'll see these are what's called hosted families. So there are actually two there, but we'll just look at the baluster rectangular. So you can see it's called baluster rectangular 8 by 35 mil. Yeah. And so there's no option there to change the material for that. So to get to that, you need to know where families live in your project. When you can't select them directly from what's visible, you need to know that in the project browser, down the bottom, you've got families. So that's where they're all stored, even when they're not visible. And so if we go down to railings, baluster square, oh, that's not the right one. Baluster rectangular it must have been. Yep, 8 by 35. So that's where it lives. And then if I go into right click there, and I'll do it on the type. So right click on the type, the name 8 by 35, and go to type properties. And if it's been set up with a material, you'll find it there. There we are, baluster material, and you can change it. Right. So that works. But there is a better way. If you just want, and I know with the sorts of design projects you're working on, you'll often want a simpler, maybe plain glass balustrade that's basically frameless, or the frame is at the bottom usually, and it's just mounted to the floor or the side of the stairs. Yeah, yeah. So I'll show you a good way of doing that. So this is just my way. There are different ways other people use, but this is the way I do it. So I've made some profiles that are on the P drive that you can use to help you with this as well. So, first step, I'm going to go to Insert, Load Family. Then I'm going to go to the P drive. You have to go to this folder in interior design, the Revit library that you've been using, and then in there, profiles. And so the file I'm going to use is 20 by 1210. And just watch out for the backups there. In fact, I'm going to delete these backups so it's not too confusing. Okay. Oh, well, Revit makes backups automatically. Remember the ones with all those numbers?
I knew it did that with the model, I just didn't realise it would.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. I mean, it's good when things go wrong, you need to have them, but yeah, they get in the way. So here we are, so Revit, that's a rectangle 20 by 1210. So I've just loaded that profile. If you're not sure what a profile is, it's just a 2D element. And so I'll just open up, I'll open up that file that I just loaded so you can see what it is because it's got something interesting. I can't see the profiles and rectangle, there we are. Okay, so it is just a rectangle, but notice how it's below this reference plane. So the intersection there of these two reference planes, which is right there, that's the insertion point. That's it. Okay, so now I can make my my railing. So, oops, go to the other view. That one. Okay, so again with my railing, I'll go to Edit Type, Duplicate. I'm going to call it Plain Glass. And then I'm going to go to Baluster Placement and just turn all the balusters off. So you need to keep one up here, but yeah, I don't want that one at all, so I'm just going to delete that. And then, yeah, so I can't delete the last one, but I can set it to none. And then down here, I'm going to set all of these to none. And then check that this is turned off. Use baluster per tread on stairs. Make sure that's not ticked. So I've got no balusters now. And then I'm going to go to rail structure. And I'll show you what to do if there are no rails. So I'll delete this one. So I can show you how to make it when you make it from scratch. So now with none, I'll click Insert and then simply change the profile to the one that I've just loaded, which is rectangle 20 by 1210. Change the material to glass. Yep. And from memory, the offset needs to be -20, but I'll have to check this. So that's the thickness of the glass. I think that's right. So I'm going to click OK. That should be it. There's one last thing, but I'm going to leave it for afterwards and I'll come back to it. So I'm going to click OK. And you'll see that it's basically got the handrail. Now something weird's happening there. Yeah, so actually let's go and have a look at that. There's a problem with the settings. Yeah, so the first thing, the top rail, see how it's got this handrail. So I don't want that. You don't need to have a handrail, even though it might be nice, but for frameless glass it's probably better not to have it at this stage. So here it's got top rail. I'm just going to say no. Click OK, and it's taken that off. Now, this part where it's projecting, that's actually because it's going from the top, and I've done my profile from the bottom, so it shouldn't be doing that. Let's just have a look at this. So, offset from path, we'll have that on 0, actually. Oh, there we go, that was the problem. It was that. Yeah, so that's not a standard setting. That's just, yep. Okay, so just watch out for that one. Yeah, that should be 0. And there we are. So, this stair now, maybe, well, even like that would be okay, and you could say that the glass is supported by the stringer. But then notice how here, this shows you really a lot of the issues that you have with stair design, because at this point, it's getting confused. There's a way to fix it. I'm going to go to Edit Path, and then select this line, and see if I can try some height correction. So up here you've got height correction. I'm going to change that to custom, and I'll maybe try 200. Yeah, quite often. So there we are. So that's okay. It's having issues when it's joining to the next one, which, well, that's just the way it is with Revit. Sometimes you've got to do a bit of trial and error. But no, we'll see. That's a global. That should be all right. So here it's still by type, and this one. So let's make this sloped. Sometimes that fixes it. Yeah, there we are. It's bizarre. There's not sometimes not a logic to it, but yeah. So here you can see that's. Oh, the first one. So here, for each path, you've got those two options. So you've got the slope option and then the height correction. Yeah. So. Yeah, but that's look. If you have a look at stairs now, when you've done a bit of stair design. Yeah. If you have a look at the stairs here, where you would never have noticed it before, but now you'll see that where the two stairs join from each flight, they've extended the handrail a little bit. That's one way. Another way is to slope the handrail on the flat landing, which you'll see all the time as well. You won't notice it until you've done some stair design, and then you'll notice it every time you walk up a stair that's got two flights. And it's because it's going from here, so from this point to this point, it's going up two rises, but it doesn't get a chance to change from here to here. So another way would be to slope that. So you put in the slope manually in here. So you'd set it to sloped, and then yeah, but you have to play around because I've fiddled with the other one. Yeah, yeah. So I'd have to play around with the next one. It's the next one that I have to adjust now. Don't be too fussy with the railings. It is just an automated tool that's doing its best to give you something, and that I mean, unless you're doing a detailed perspective view that's going to show that junction, no one else is going to notice.
You just use the perspective that you show it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Or even if you do show it, if it's at a distance, no one's going to pick you up on that. They're more interested in the overall space and everything, or everything going together. So, so you don't get too picky with the details, especially with railings, because they're made by people in a factory usually, and they're not going to make it differently because you've modelled it differently. And I hear so many people complaining about the railing tool in Revit, and I just say to them, look, well, if you want to model it perfectly in 3D, you've got model in place, and you've got all these other tools that you can use to model every component, if you want to, perfectly, and do what the guys in the factory do. But do you have to? So? Oh yeah, so again, just you can do that. You can just model it. Yeah. Just I'd make a family for that, but then you do an extrusion in a separate family. Bring that in, set it as height adjustable, and when you make it, then it's easy. Yeah. So what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So just coming back to the stairs. So now maybe instead of having the glass coming out of the stringer, though, I want to have a different sort of stringer. So before I do this next type of stair, I'll just show you some adjustments. So with that stair, go to Edit Type, and I'll duplicate it. Even though I've taken the risers off this one, I forgot I'd done that. But I'll still show you that. So I'm going to call this Open Center Stringer. So firstly, I'll go to the Run type. So here, I'm just going to select that and then Browse. And then go to the riser option. So I'll turn that back on so you can see that's how it would have been before with these risers. And then if I turn that off, of course, we get open risers. But then also I want the stringers to be on the side. So I'm going to click OK here and then come down to supports and change the right support to none, left support to none, and then tick middle support. So how easy is that? Yep. The problem is you'll lose then a lot of the supports for the landing. So again, if you're going to use this approach, you have to come back and model that in if you want to see it in 3D. Yeah. And it's actually pretty good. So Revit has great tools for that. So I'm going to change this now again to the same type I made before, plain glass. And again, get rid of that annoying offset. That's so strange. And there we are. So, okay, so then to put in a support for that landing, it actually would be pretty involved structurally, but to do a simple one for a concept type presentation, again, you could use model in place, so it's a good chance to show you a few tricks there. So I'm going to set the category to stairs, stair support, I'll call it. So with extrusion, I'm going to use pick lines, and I'll pick the two sides of my stringer. So notice how it's projected those down onto the ground. Super clever. And so over here, I'll pick the two sides of this stringer, and again, it's projecting those onto the ground. And then I can simply maybe, again, pick, but this time I'll put in an offset and make it 700. And I'll pick the back of that landing. Make sure I'm going to the right side. It doesn't want to go the other side. So I'll orbit around, and it should cope with that. Okay, there's one thing which doesn't. Hey, there we go. So I wanted to go to that side, that's all. Okay, get rid of this one. There we are. So I've got a line there on the floor projecting again down from the landing. And so I don't know the thickness of these. Let's just see. It'll tell me if I select it. Yep, 50. So I can offset now 50 mil on the ground. Join all of those together. Righto, so then where does it need to finish? Well, pick lines again, and I can pick the landing in 3D, and again it projects it down to the ground. So again, trim. So this shows you how you can design in 3D, for your detailed design especially, and with joinery units this works really well, all those sorts of things where you can do most of it with extrusions especially. And so now once it's finished I can simply stretch that up to line up with the landing. And we know, of course, it's going to join perfectly to those stringers. Okay, so then if you really wanted to make it perfect, you could cut off that angled corner there. But I'm not going to worry about that. Have a look at the other video I did yesterday, and it shows you how to do that if you're interested. But even like that, it's okay. So that's all right, but then I know that the stair Caitlin designed had lines that were different. So we've got to do something extra to make that sort of stair. So I'm going to go back to the plan. Edit stairs. And then select this flight. And you can see I can convert that as well. Yeah. So, okay, so now there is an option to draw a sketch from scratch, which also would work. But actually, before I do that, I just want to show you a couple of little things with these stairs. So notice how with these that you make, these are the automatic ones. So when you're using, say, the run tool, all of these at the top, they're all automatic. So if I select one of these, notice how you've got the arrow and then the circle. And I think I've shown you before they do something different. So if we make a section, it's a really good one to look at with a view like this actually. So I've got a section there that should pick up those stairs. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go to wireframe just so that I can see this stair. And I'll go to edit it. Okay, so notice how you can see the grip in section as well, which I think is pretty clever. And then if you use the circle, probably clearer when you do it in section, and you can see then what it's doing. It's actually taking steps off. But if you use the triangle or the arrow, notice how if I take steps away from the bottom, it's adding them to the top. And conversely, if I go and add them to the bottom, it's taking them off the top. That's also pretty clever. So that maybe will give you a better idea of the difference between the circle and the arrow, and it's the same at the top, even though the result might seem a bit different. So if I use the circle there, again it should take steps away, whereas if I use the arrow, it'll keep the number of steps, but take them off the bottom from adding to the top, and vice versa. So that's where these automatic things are great, but for the sort of stair that maybe we need, Yeah, you could make it work, but I'm going to show you maybe one more way. Oh, yeah. So I'm just hiding these things that I've made. And, yep, that's all done. So I'm going to make a new stair. Oh, sorry. What computer number is it? Oh, okay, you won't see it unless you're on your desktop. It won't be long. I'll be with another couple of minutes. Okay, so this is the last thing. So with the stair tool, again, instead of using these automatic flights, you can use sketch, create sketch. So when you're creating a sketch, you've got three elements. You've got boundaries, risers, and path. So often I'll start with the boundaries. And so there I'm going to go along these reference planes. And a little tip I can give you there, stop at your landings. So there you can see I've stopped because that's where my landing will begin. And I'm going to come down and do the next point where it touches the wall, and then across, and then again back up to where the landing finishes before I continue on and do the rest of the flight. I don't know how long it's going to be yet, but I'll just finish it somewhere there. And then again I'll trace the other side for my other boundary. So the boundary is basically like the stringer, if you have the stringers on the two sides. Even if you're making a stair with a centre stringer, just think about where the stringers would be if they were housed. And so I've started with the boundaries. So now with the riser, I'm going to go from here and go across. And then I can use offset and change that to 250, if that's what we want. And simply pick that black riser line. Remember, the risers are always black. And just offset it. Now, it's probably a good idea to stretch these across, even though technically you don't have to, believe it or not. Revit is one thing Revit will do for you. It will trim those back. But because of this, the thing I'm drawing, it'll definitely make it easier if I bring these across because of what's going to happen when I offset further. No, you just yeah, click it. Okay, so I can show you a good trick with copy here as well. So I'm going to select all of those riser lines, click copy, and turn on multiple. So now I can pick it up, say, at this corner point here, and then go along to that next endpoint, and just keep copying them like that, and they'll keep the same setup. Okay, so I've made, how many? I can't even count. But good trick there, if you go back to drawing risers, it should tell you somewhere. Yeah, does it say it? I can't even see. Oh, I saw it, just now it's gone. There it is. So it's, 14 created, 10 remaining. So it's down here. So if it's got 14, so I'll take off, yep. Okay, so I should be able to get the rest with mirror. So I'm going to select all of these, mirror draw axis, and go from the midpoint of this line straight up. There we are. Yep. Yeah, so you've got two mirror tools, mirror draw axis and mirror pick axis. So with mirror draw axis, you draw a line for your axis. With mirror pick axis, you've got to have something that you can pick. So you'll know if there's an axis that you can pick. Usually it'll be a reference plane, something like that. Otherwise you can draw it as you go. Yep. That's it. Yep. And so now I'll try finishing it, but it'll probably give me an error. I'm sure it will, because my boundaries aren't correct. All right, so it's telling me it can't work. So I'll fix the boundaries afterwards, but also I need to put a path in. I'm going to go stair path and go from the midpoint to here, coming down at the same angle, and just guessing where that would finish. So again, I can mirror these stair path lines using, again, mirror draw axis and the midpoint of this line again, and then any vertical point above. And then again, to finish my stair path, I'll just join those together. So I'll try finishing it now. It'll still tell me there's a problem. So all I've got to do is use trim to corner and join those boundaries so it's closed. Done. So tick to finish, and it's worked. So that's my old stair that I didn't delete, so I'm just going to hide that. And so what might have happened is it alternates from flight to landing automatically. Yeah. So if you put two landings next to each other, the one after the first one is going to be a flight. Yeah. Okay, so now I can make that stair. Yeah, now it should be on there, but sometimes this happens. You can see it's got the second one, but for some reason the first one's not working. That's bizarre. Maybe I hit it. Yeah. Well, that's from the other one, but this one, no. Yeah. So that happens though. Sometimes when you use Sketch, it doesn't always work. So let's see if I make them housed. Yep. So the sides are working. It's just that centre one that's got an issue. So you have to model it. Otherwise, it's okay. Yep. So the final thing I'll say about stairs is if you're going to do a curved stair or a spiral stair. I know, yep, everyone always wants to do those as well. So this full step spiral or centre end spiral, they're both great options for curved stairs. So a centre end spiral is the one I'll use. And so you just need to give a centre point and then choose where you want the stair to start and then come around and choose where you want it to end. Onto the next level. Yeah, okay, so I'll share that too. So, okay, so I'll finish this one. You do. That's the big problem with spirals, and that's why it's very difficult to do them in Australia now. Yeah, that's right. So this wouldn't be legal. No, it does, but you need to tell it where. So, well, that's what I was going to show you. So, to modify that now, it's very difficult because I need to have. Yeah, because I need to make a new landing and other things that have the same centre point. So instead of just going and making a stair, if you know you're making a curved stair, the best I can give you is to mark the centre first, just by drawing a couple of reference planes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think of it like you set square, and so when you're drawing, you set out from a point on your drawing board or your page, and you're always measuring from there. It's the same idea, really. So, and parallel rulers as well. So, so here I've just drawn those two reference planes. I can move them around, but that's going to be then the centre, because it won't just be the stairs. Think about what else you'll need to make. So you'll have voids and floors and all sorts of things that need to have the same centre point because they're going to follow the same curve. So yeah, so it's really helpful to mark it out, and then if I go to make a stair, so I can again centre ends spiral, start on that centre point because you always have to give the centre point, and I can come out and give the first step, and then come around and count to 18. Maybe we'll go the other way. Oh no, we won't. No, I'll go this way. Yeah, no, actually you can do more, sorry. You can do more. Yep, you can. Yeah, I'll look that up. That's one I always like to check. So yeah, 18 is the basic limit for a stair flight, but there is an exception for spirals. Yeah, a lot of people don't know. Yep, there's volume 2. Oh no, you're not doing class 1, you're doing class 2, aren't you? Sorry, so it'll be volume 1. So stairs in here, where's it again? This one. I always forget. Maybe it's in here, sorry. Oh, look, most of it I'm pretty good with volume 1, but because the controls for stairs are identical in volume 2, I normally just go straight to volume 2. So that's what I'll do. So I know where they are in here. Okay, so, and having said that, now it's going to take me a minute. Here we go, safe movement and access, stairway and ramp construction, there it is. You've got all of this in volume 1 as well. So here we go, so not more than 18 and not less than 2 rises in each flight. So that's the basic requirement, but then I know there is something about spiral stairs. Oh, I'm just thinking of the rises. Sorry, okay, so this is the one people forget. You can go up to 220, right? So that's how you can get fewer rises. Yeah, that's the trick. Yeah, yeah. So, but see, what that would mean is that, yeah. And I think that's a class 1 thing anyway. You'd have to check to see if you can find that in volume 1 for class 2 buildings, which is what you're doing. It's in here somewhere. Where is it again? You'll know it straight away because it actually even has the same table. Here we go, goings and rises, 2R plus G, D213, that's the one. There it is. And do they have anything about spiral stairs? I don't think so. So you're out of luck. Basically, if it's inside the unit, you might get away with it. Otherwise, I think you've got to stick with the 190 if it's a public stair, especially. Yeah, but that's a good trick to know. If you're doing class 1, that's how you can make spiral stairs actually work. Houses. Yep. Yep. So, okay, so if you're doing a curved or spiral stair otherwise, it is a big issue, having that limit of 18. So here, if I start there, and I'll come out to begin it, yeah, say here. Oh, yeah, sure, okay, sure. So, yeah, so I can see then actually what's on your screens, and so you're number 10 and 9. Okay, so yeah, I'll leave you off it. Yep, sure. And honestly, I haven't got much more to go, but it's good to finish off with this. So, okay, so again, I can count around 18. Oh, just because it's on the projector, it's got a different aspect ratio. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. So now you can see why that centre point's so useful, because I can come back to it to start my next flight. And the landings only have to be 700. They don't have to be the full width of your stair, which would be 1 metre, or 900 at least, but probably 1 metre if you can. Yeah, yep. So there, so I can come around, and so even there it's a bit difficult getting the same radius. So I need to know what that is. I've just forgotten. So 1300. So it helps to know that, and now I can do a new run. You could, yeah. Yep. But here I can just type in 1300, and then, oh, now it's getting confused. Okay, so it's all fixable though. Yeah, that's right.
How'd you do that?
So I just selected that flight and then changed it
Oh, to 13.
to 13.
No. No, 1300 is with the landing.
I don't know. I didn't work that out. So to work that out, you'd have to project across in a straight line. But now I can just measure. Yeah, no, you don't want to measure in a curve. So there you can see it's 500 and something, 596. So to make it bigger, I wouldn't set it out accurately. I would just select this and then rotate. Okay, and then drag the base point. If it's not, drag it onto the centre. Pick it up, say here, and then I'd bring it around a step. And then measure again. And big enough, 837. Bigger than it needs to be, but that's okay. So that's it. And you can see it has been nice and given me a curved landing. It won't always, but where it can, it tries to.
And you have to really look at that in technical to make sure that it's not made
Exactly.
It's going to be.
Yeah. And it's also a problem in terms of construction because if you've got a curve that's a helix, which is what you get on the side of a spiral, it's not even a spiral at all. A spiral is a curve that changes radius. A helix is a curve that changes elevation as it curves. So the correct name for these stairs is a helical stair, but no one says that. So they're not spirals, but they're called that. And so, yeah, yeah, yeah.
A spiral stair will just leave you smaller.
Yeah, yeah. And if you want to get into all that Fibonacci stuff, it's pretty interesting how you generate a true spiral, and it's yeah. Don't ever do that. Don't ever do a true spiral. You'll see. No, don't. Well, you can do it. You can do all that Fibonacci, but do it with look at golden mean and how you can draw them. They're not a true Fibonacci curve. The ones you do using the golden mean, they're a series of arcs that look like a spiral, a true spiral, but they're not. But they're the ones you should use. They're much easier. Yeah, true spiral is a pain. So here though you can see obviously the shape, and so we'd have the curve coming up here, and that'd be one beam that'd curve up nicely, but then it has to go straight here. So that's a cranked beam, which is a difficult thing structurally. A cranked beam? Yeah, so a cranked beam is just one that changes angle. And they basically do the joint with a weld, and it makes a firm joint. So you can do that, but it's still not the best structure. And if I finish this and have a look at it in 3D, you're going to see straight away why it's a problem. So, well, here, because it's got the centre stringer, it's not so obvious. I'll put it back to the other one. And you can see then we've got this horrible landing. So, that's why I've probably said to you before, spirals are a problem in Australia. With the, no, because of our over-the-top building controls. Yeah. The 18 flight landings. Other countries don't have that. Australia has gone to the extreme of regulation and control that, yeah. Australia is probably the most, or one of the most highly regulated countries on the planet now. Yeah, it wasn't like this. I mean, but the thing is, we weren't. In the 70s and 80s, Australia had pretty sensible legislation, even with things like this, and then suddenly things got really extreme, and it's just kept going worse and worse, and now we're behind in many ways, and there's no two ways about it. I mean, many other countries are doing better designs, and they're freer to do things. They're not any less safe than we are. I mean, Japan is not an unsafe country, and the UK as well. They're not, except for their fire safety. Maybe they could improve a little bit there. But otherwise, I mean, I doubt there are more people falling off staircases and balustrades and things like that than there are in Australia. We've had. America's that's the other extreme of craziness, where they allow anything, and you've got to sue people individually to get anywhere. But there's a medium, and Australia's on the other extreme. I mean, Italy used to have a bad reputation for being highly over-regulated, and we're worse than them now. We're even more extreme than some of those Southern European and European countries that were over the top. So, it tells you something. Maybe, yeah. Silos, yeah. People making decisions in small groups and not looking at what's happening. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's it. And I mean, but people travel. Everyone in Australia travels, and you'd think they'd be able to look and see what happens in other places. Like with a lot of things that people talk about at the moment, negative gear is my big one. People go on about that as though we're the only ones doing it, when they're totally dishonest. If you look at what happens in the UK, New Zealand, they've all got it, and if they didn't have it, their property markets would collapse. Basically, like they're trying to do at the moment with Sydney property, they're killing it with legislation. It's insane. So, you know, have a look at some other places and maybe see how things can be done a little bit better. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's right. That's the other extreme. But what they don't have is the capital gains tax discount that we have. That's what overpumped the property market here, I think. But again, I know it's a different thing, but yeah. Oh yes, sorry. Yep, yep. Yes, yep. Sorry. Yep. Yep. Sorry. Yep. Sorry.
So the question is to do, and it's probably more for the group really, but
Yep.
we want to know, like, with the apartments,
Yep.
do all building codes need to follow what kind of tiny house height so that we can have some stairs that are bigger or smaller? So what is the paint pass the word?
Okay, so
In terms of the address and
stairs that aren't required don't really have requirements. So in terms of the width and things like that, there aren't really defined requirements for those things. But for required stairs, there are really definite requirements.
but if they're like if it's a 2-level unit, would
Yep.
that be required stairs, right?
No, no. So it's stairs that go from the unit, from the
In and out of the building.
the public space. It's for fire egress, basically,
So in theory, I don't
or
have
fire
to have
safety.
to put that landing here. If it's internal, if it's in the unit.
Oh no, they still have that requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a requirement for the number of flights. That always applies. So yeah, all of these things. I just had it up.
The width I can change or?
Yeah, that's right. You won't find a requirement for width except for required stairs. Even if they're not fire isolated, they have that required width. And at least 900, but try for 1,000 between your handrails. That's the general rule of thumb. It varies, but that's the basic rule. Otherwise, here you can see the requirement for landing, 750, not 700, sorry. Yeah. And then the heights. So I'll finish that there anyway, and then I can